Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2. My guest in the studio today is Paul Burrows. Hi, Paul.
Hello, man.
And Paul is a meditation teacher in the Insight meditation tradition. And in today's interview, we're going to explore some of Paul's own journey with meditation. I'm really keen on Conscious 2, not just to interview teachers that you may have already come across, but also some of the emerging generation of teachers, but also specifically to hear about people's own paths and their own journeys within certain traditions and certain teachings. So that's what we're going to do in today's interview. So, Paul, maybe a good starting point is, how did you first get into meditation? I know you were saying, we'll come into that meditation is more than just the practice of meditation, but how did your path begin and start?
I was first introduced to the kind of traditional sitting quietly with your eyes closed thing called meditation when I was about 15 at school. And monks and nuns from a local Thai monastery would come and do evening classes in meditation practice. So that was the first time when I actually sat myself down and started playing around with observing my experience kind of from the inside, as it were.
And at that time, was it something that you had an appetite for, or I guess most teenagers in that situation, it would be a kind of like, right.
Yeah, it was cute. I was interested at that time. I thought, that looks fun, I'll go and try that out. But I hadn't really, it was a little bit later when I really, something started happening in my life, and I was very compelled to learn how to explore my experience in a more direct way. That was probably later.
Yeah. Between those times, is it something you kind of dipped into, or you just kind of forgot about it and then something catalyzed a kind of...
You know what, it's a bit mysterious because I had a little bit of Buddhist context already from going to those meditation classes.
Yeah.
But I must have been more like 17 or 18 when I just was really stopped in my tracks by the simple fact that I didn't know what I was, and very kind of compelled with curiosity. Well, how can I make a response to this profound fact that I don't know what I am fundamentally? There's scientific ideas about life and death, and there's religious and mystical ideas, and there's lots of different traditions with different ideas about, the truth of what it is to be a person. But how can I sincerely start to explore that in a satisfying way with my own eyes?
That's a pretty big question. 17, 18 years old. And maybe the kind of question that pops into someone's mind and gets disregarded in the next thought. Really interesting, you kind of had that curiosity and appetite. It
was a time when I was supposed to be working out what I'm going to do with my life. So it's like I was really interested to find out what I'm interested in.
Yes.
It's like what can I really commit myself to? There's lots of different things. And that really stood out. But then how to take that forward was tricky because you can't, it's kind of an ephemeral, difficult, you can't just go and do a course in it. Go and do a course in existential inquiry. Well, maybe you can, but I didn't get that careers advice. 18,
you get a careers advice, it's not on the list of options.
Exactly, it's not on the list of options there.
Yeah. So what happened from there? Is this a question you stayed with yourself, or did you then find some kind of path at that point?
Well, I knew that it was important, and now looking back, I can see how important those kind of experiences were. But I didn't really have any idea how to integrate that or how to do anything about that. Although things would pop up in my life, and I'd realise, okay, that's to do with this interest in exploring my experience, turning in and kind of scientifically finding a way to discover more about what it is to be a person. So various books, and going to India was a thing, and a friend of mine, his yoga teacher had a connection with an Advaita ashram up in Kulu in the kind of foothills of the Himalayas, so we went up there, and there was a group of mainly Canadians, actually, doing lots of meditation and talking about this thing, enlightenment, and on this spiritual path. And I was like, I'm probably 19 or 20 at that stage. Oh, okay, so you can get stuck into this and
there are courses.
See what happens. There are courses you can do. Yeah.
So you went and spent some time there?
Yeah, I spent a few weeks, I think, up there. The whole trip to India that time was maybe 5 weeks or something. 2 of which were in this kind of ashram place.
What was that like?
It was. It was beautiful. It was very. We were very well looked after. There was 3 of us, me and a couple of friends, and we were young and curious. And in India, we'd been there once or twice before, but we were still quite naive and, like, wow, what's all this? Look at all this amazing stuff happening. And so people kind of took us under their wing, and that was a beautiful part of it. There was some real kind of some care in the community. So.
And your early experiences of meditation, what were they like? I guess that was the first time you really properly sat. Is that right?
I guess it was in a more sustained way. I honestly can't remember. It was more like just sitting down and there being complete chaos, really. It's like okay. Feelings, thoughts, sounds, like what on earth am I doing, questions and discomfort and then a real fire, like I love this and I want to see what this is about.
That's interesting.
So kind of a meeting of those two things, like but chaos basically, inside.
And did you have early experiences of spaciousness and nothingness, or was it just the kind of fire meeting the noise and a kind of willfulness to want to kind of stay with it?
Not really experiences of what did you say, nothingness and emptiness or something. No, nothing like that. Unless you could say the kind of the wonder and the kind of the sort of sensing the mystery. That's not really, maybe it is something to do with emptiness, but that's been a touchstone for me. That's kind of been the guide of like, okay, this is what I'm coming back to. So it didn't really matter so much about what experience I was having, even though I wanted to know what deep states of absorption were and enlightenment experiences and psychedelics and different things. I wanted to know what the mind can do and the different places you can end up. But that's been something later on in my life, learning how to settle, be more still and centered.
Sure. And did you encounter fear or resistance or any of the kind of, sometimes when people first kind of sit, it's quite confronting and quite challenging, but not always. Was that there for you, or was there just a sense of just, no, it's something I feel I want to pursue?
The fear and the resistance really showed up a bit later when I was living in a retreat centre. Okay. And at one point I did a long retreat in a very kind of intense Burmese tradition. And that was incredibly difficult. And that's when there was no escape from the chaos, all the stuff that was happening, just the world of feelings and thoughts and busyness and all the stuff which was here the whole time, just beneath the surface in a way. Because
it's a funny kind of thing that, we often come to meditation practice seeking quietness and spaciousness, and often but sometimes what we get by is a load of noise and kind of intensity and challenge. And I'm wondering, so it sounds like you had that experience, and I'm wondering what that was like and what supported you in kind of navigating your way through that territory.
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about this before, but without the teacher being there and without this actual technique, kind of a traditional modern day technique in the Vipassana insight meditation tradition, in a silent retreat centre where I didn't have to do anything except an hour's work a day, there was a lot there which enabled me to keep coming back and say, even though this is difficult, can I bring the curiosity and the interest and the mindfulness to bear on this moment's experience? It's like, without all that being there, I wouldn't have stayed with it. But with the teacher saying, no, you can do this, Paul, what's difficult about this? And are you noticing your aversion to this fear, to this pain, to this anxiety, to this thing? Why is this so difficult to open to and to experience? It was I had to really stoke up my interest. I knew I was interested, but I had to keep finding it so that I could keep going back into the sitting hall, do sitting meditation, walking meditation, and find a way to pay attention to the inner world when a lot of me wanted to not do that, to run away. And go,
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Are there times you just thought, I've had enough of this. I don't have to be here. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, two very strong forces. One, a real striving to understand and to get enlightenment experiences and to make progress and to I don't even know what it was, but I had to be a success. I had to not fail. I had to do well, and to
wake up somehow.
To wake up somehow, based on an idea of not knowing really what that was at all.
Yeah.
So there's a strong force there, and then an equally strong, oh my God, I hate this. This is difficult. I'm scared. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? And trying to find ways to wriggle out of it. So kind of an intense time that was. Two strong forces that weren't really in working together.
Right, sure. In fact, they're almost directly opposed in a sense. And
maybe, yeah.
What helped you with that? I mean, because I think that's quite common. I think, I guess in varying degrees of intensity in different people, but it strikes me that a lot of people have the wish for things to be different and to wake up, but also the reluctance, be it an apathy or a fear or a kind of resistance, but some kind of force that gets in the way of that. And I think people experience it on a bigger level, but also on a smaller level in terms of each day when it comes to whether they should do their meditation practice. There's the kind of place in them which kind of wants to wake up, and the other part that's kind of reluctant. So I'm wondering what helped you at that time, or if it's more appropriate another point in your journey, how to kind of navigate those two different forces.
Looking back on it, I can see that what's really important has been returning to the original interest.
Okay.
A very easy for me to find interest in wanting to know what's true about my experience and about what can I say is true about myself, being a person. And that's quite a clean interest. As not trying to get anything out of it. I'm not trying to meet an image of success. I genuinely want to know, and I want to find a way that I can honour that and make a response that includes that wanting to know what the truth of the situation is to be a person. That's.
And as you were going down this path, and I know that you've sat on various retreats with different teachers in different ways. I think one of the things, because I guess you were this time you're through your 20s kind of thing, and I think for a lot of people that have a kind of sincere spiritual quest or wish or kind of path, that it can also be sometimes quite isolating, that there's not so many young people necessarily engaged in those kind of ways. Was that a struggle for you in terms of friendships or community, or was it not? I don't know how that was for you.
Yeah, it has been a struggle because you stop doing old things and old patterns with old groups of friends, drinking and drugs and talking crap, and you want to try something else, and that sort of sets you apart, and it's that can be very isolating. I mean, part of what helped was being around other people who are interested to explore what it is to be more conscious and to support awareness growing in their lives. But I think there is something that I found isolating about it. Because, in a way, it is about finding autonomy and not just agreeing with people and finding the truth for myself, no matter what anybody else says. In a way, that's kind of one part of it. Has been one part of it. Because
I think often what can happen is that there's a kind of sense of we want to be liked. We want to fit in, we want to be, and I think when you pursue a path which is perhaps a path less ordinary in terms of your pursuit and your inquiry, there's a sense of everyone else sees it this way, but actually that's not quite what feels true. That's not quite what resonates, and honouring that can sometimes feel like a distancing from what else, unless there's or until there's a community that supports the kind of that more truthful unfoldment. I'm just wondering what that was like for you.
Well, it's still a big part of my life. It's people I love who are very important to me and a big part of my identity, in a more conventional mode of making things work in their lives. And, I've kind of chosen a slightly different route. And that sets up a bridge in a way. There's I haven't got a career where I'm making lots of money, but lots of my friends are making lots of money and they've got families and they've kind of put the conventional things in place. And then some respects I've neglected that because I've had to follow something else. So it's now like, oh my God, I miss that. I want to have enough money, and I want to have the option to have a family, and I want to have the option to have a home that I own at some point maybe. And yet I couldn't sacrifice the freedom of being able to do longer retreats and travel in India and Nepal, for example, to actually nurture something else which is deeply important. So
I think it takes a lot of courage to really honour that demand inside, almost to follow that path. I think it's funny. A lot of people that have the other things established probably also, not all necessarily, but I think probably quite a lot would deep down regret having not taken the time to also have that kind of inner kind of pursuit. I'm wondering if, so you've sat kind of various, obviously, retreats and had various experiences. I'm wondering if we could talk a bit about, I know we were talking of Cameron, obviously, I know you a little bit kind of outside of this context. So I know that some other aspects have kind of broadened your understanding of this idea of meditation, things like the Diamond approach and Gestalt therapy. So I don't know if you can say something about how your path opened up to include some of these other elements, and what was behind that.
Some of my teachers in the insight meditation tradition have been doing things like the Diamond approach and psychotherapy training and things like that. And at some point I started to get interested and started working in a kind of one-to-one way in a more like a therapist kind of relationship, even though it wasn't actually that. And that really got my interest because I'd been discovering and exploring how to bring attention to my direct experience, but not really actually whilst sitting in front of another person. Do you know what I mean? Or sitting in a group of other people. So all of a sudden there was a coming together of, okay, there's, awareness practice is something I go off and I do on my own. I quietly go and explore this process. And then I come back to the world and there's an integration and it has its effect. But actually to bring them together at the same time has been extremely rich.
Yes.
And to be able to explore saying to somebody, you impact me in this way, I feel such and such right now. With the support of awareness practice there and around, is super rich actually.
Because I guess it's funny you say that, because I had from a different perspective, I had a similar kind of understanding that it's one thing to have contact with ourselves in isolation. It's a whole other challenge to maintain that contact in relationship with other people. And it seems that the element of meditation, which is sitting and being quiet, is very powerful in terms of developing connection with oneself, but sometimes some different practices can help with having contact with others in a way that also has that authenticity and that kind of place. So I don't know if you can say anything about how some of those practices met your meditation practice. Did they help deepen your meditation practice, or your meditation practice help support them? I don't know if you can touch on that a bit.
Very much. I mean, listening to you say that, I don't divide them now between meditation practice and then, I don't know what you call it, awareness in dialogue or something you could call it. Inquiry where you're not sitting quietly still looking like that, or walking backwards and forwards quietly or something. I don't make such a distinction between them now. It's like, I need to sit because I need to find to collect my energy and my attention and to clear my head and to arrive on a day. And I need to be with other people. I need contact and I need to interact and have relationships. So there's two really important needs there. And I like doing experiments in practice where I use imagination, reflecting that, for example, that you as an individual, like me, in your own way, want to be happy and don't want pain and crisis. So I might sit and imagine that on the floor when I'm doing meditation practice, or on the tube, or on the bus, or when I'm walking. And then when I come and see you, it's like, oh, that reflection, that contemplation isn't so far away, actually. I can actually look at you now, Alex, and key into that. It's like, oh yeah, hello, mate. I know you're another whole person with your whole world of experience who wants to be happy like me in your own way. And it's like, oh, okay, I can feel that influences how I relate to you and how I experience you, and it for me, it makes the world a preferable place. Makes it better. I'm more interested in you, and I'm less interested in you being there just for my happiness. It's like, oh, hello, other person. Oh, yeah, right, I forgot. You're this whole other person.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't see that. I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's like we get so used to seeing the world through our own filters and through our own kind of perspectives that there's something about going beyond that and actually meeting someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the sitting really helps that.
That's what I was curious about. Yeah, that it gives a deeper capacity. Would you say? Or?
It does. It helps me stay on track with a certain, getting into a certain, I don't know if perception is the right word, a certain way of. It helps me to remember. It's like learning how to remember things that I don't want to forget. So I don't want to forget that you've got difficult stuff happening in your life, and you've got things that inspire you, and you've got this rich entire world happening, and so do I. And we're both sensitive, waking up individuals in the middle of this. And if I sit down and I learn to remember, then that comes with me. So the sitting is a training in remembering how to find these thoughts, in a way, thoughts, feelings, perceptions. And then when I sit with you, and then I can relax with you and feel satisfied in how I'm meeting you, when I go home and sit, it's a different quality of my experience. I feel more love and more connection and more friendliness, more support from my friends. And it's easier to find stillness and to shrug off anxiety and stress and to settle. So, they flow. They do flow into each other quite obviously.
Yeah, and it strikes me that there's a greater richness for each of how they kind of meet each other. I know that the kind of integration of Western psychotherapy with the kind of Eastern meditation practices is a kind of almost kind of over talked about idea in some kind of circles. But I think there's something about how each support the other in a kind of depth of kind of contact. And I guess I'm wondering, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm wondering about kind of your life a little bit now. I know that you've more recently started doing some more teaching and the kind of meditation kind of work. And I was wondering a little bit about how that's been in that kind of change in role. We had a little conversation before we started filming about, there are some teachers that are much more in kind of embodied in teacher role, and there are others that are more kind of in my mind kind of companion kind of role. I don't know if that's not the right word, but I don't know if you can say anything about how that's been for you, kind of that transition and guiding others in their process.
Teaching is a practice. There's no way around it. Teaching is a practice for me. And it's a practice form with lots of dimensions. Interpersonal dimensions, particularly. What happens when you sit in the front of a room of 50 people? You're sitting facing that way, they're all sitting facing you, and you're supposed to say something helpful and useful.
Sure.
Walking in before doing a talk can feel like going to the execution chamber.
I remember once Billy Connolly, the comedian, describing it as kind of exactly like that, of kind of the walk to the gallows. It's like he calls it the long walk, kind of like out as people waiting to be kind of in that context entertained, or in this context kind of inspired or awakened. It's definitely throws up some stuff, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with that, and how does awareness practice help you with just that one part of teaching before you walk into a hall full of people? It's a practice that I've chosen to hold me to my practice because I feel like it suits me and I want to do it. And I'm very much learning what that practice is. I'm a student of being a teacher. It's a rich learning form. And I can't rush it. It's happening, and I'm sticking with it. I like it.
Yeah. And for maybe there's a kind of potentially final question, and someone that's watching this that is touched by kind of what you're saying, and maybe has heard about meditation, maybe done a few little bits here and there, and feels a calling to do more, to go to go deeper. How can they start? What suggestion or advice would you give to someone?
Go and try something out. There's a lot out there. Just take the step. Just do something. Go and see what you learn. Keep an open mind and go and see what you learn. Use your best sense to what kind of tradition, what kind of style is going to have the interest to carry you, and just make a step. Just you have to just do it at some point. Go and do a retreat is what I'd started doing, and that's been really helpful. It may not be a retreat for any individual, but I like that idea, and that's how I started, and that gave birth to a whole process really. But just try something. Don't be scared. Keep an open mind. Go and try something. If you get it wrong, there's plenty of other places you can go and explore.
Yeah, it can sometimes be a case of following the clues, I guess, and just finding what you feel drawn to. May not be the first thing, but kind of,
Yeah, it may not be the first thing. And, we change a lot over time. But there's a lot available out there. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Paul. I really appreciated that.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, great. And thank you for watching, and look forward to talking to you again on Conscious Tea, hopefully very soon. Bye-bye.